Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. For a few hours last night, things got very real for Tesla when it comes to this whole SpaceX merger acquisition. But shortly after, Elon did say this is fake news. And in short, the Wall Street Journal report was that Tesla was getting ready to sell off Giga Shanghai so they could complete this acquisition or merger. But Elon said this has never even come up in a discussion ever. Absurdly fake news. People should assume news is fake until proven otherwise. This would have been incredible to dive into because, as you might guess, it would have had huge implications and would have all but confirmed this Tesla and SpaceX merger was going to happen at some point. And look, I'm aware there have been things in the past that Elon called out at the time as fake news that turned out to have some kernel of truth in them. So trust me, I'll be eagerly waiting in the wings if we ever get confirmation this is something that's actually happening. But for now, I think it's too soon to break down all of the potential implications. And all I have to say for now is that Tesla selling off Giga Shanghai is not the only option to clear a path for this eventual merger. But something tells me we will be circling back to this at some point in the future. NHTSA just came out with some updates about how they're working to fast-track automated vehicles. So now NHTSA is working to implement these changes. One, they have allowed Zoox to commercially deploy its robotaxis through that Part 555 temporary exemption, which means they can deploy up to 2,500 vehicles every year for the next 2 years. And I have to say, it's painful on X to see how many people are still seemingly so in the dark about all of these exemptions and caps that we have covered on the channel numerous times. So it's impossible for me not to think in my head, if these people would just watch Electrified regularly, they would already know what's going on. But if you need to hear it from someone other than me, Sawyer said he talked to Lars in person, and Lars said Tesla and the Cybercab are not limited by any type of vehicle cap. And that's because, as we covered in the past, Tesla has self-certified the Cybercab, meaning they said it already meets all of the FMVSS, meaning Tesla does not need that Part 555 exemption. And as I said before, in the future, could NHTSA challenge Tesla's self-certification? The answer is yes. But as more of these federal frameworks continue to change, favoring AVs, the chances of that become less and less. The second thing NHTSA will implement, the first ever AV performance standards through a partnership with SAE. This will fund a 3-year, $5 million program bringing together experts to gather data and accelerate creation of the first ever AV performance standards. This project will inform a single national standard for AV safety to eliminate the patchwork regulatory landscape that has stifled innovation for years. So on one hand, that's awesome. But on the other hand, this is a 3-year test, and that data is going to be used to create these first ever federal AV frameworks, meaning that framework isn't going to be done for the next few years. But it's at this point I need you to hear me. This doesn't really matter that much for Tesla because of what I just said. They've already self-certified the Cybercab. And separately, I think the easiest way for everyone to understand this, on one hand, we have physical vehicle requirements. That's what we're talking about right now, the hardware requirements. Do these cars need wheels and pedals and so on? Then separately, we have the other angle, which is robotaxis actually operating, which states currently have a say in. So there's been some proposed legislation like the Self-Drive Act that has been aimed at the latter, which would be a federal framework that would override the state rules for actual robotaxi deployment. But so far, that has not really made any progress. So this news right here is only focused on the hardware side, which again doesn't really apply to Tesla that much because the Cybercab is already in the clear. So right now, federally, Tesla has 0 limits for how many Cybercabs they can deploy. But despite that fact, they will still have to go state by state when it comes to actual robotaxi operation. And to get a federal framework that would override the state rules when it comes to deployment of these robotaxi vehicles, that's something different altogether. So yes, this news is quite encouraging for the AV industry at scale. And yes, as these federal standards are clarified, the chances of NHTSA challenging Tesla's own ruling go lower. But ultimately, this news is going to be more helpful for other AV companies than it is for Tesla. Number 3, NHTSA will implement a rule that will will modernize the application process and improve access to exemptions for these companies, including AV developers. The NHTSA administrator will have discretion to apply temporary exemptions to vehicles made before the effective date of an exemption grant, which again would benefit a company like Zoox that has older vehicles that they could potentially bring in to actually deploy for robotaxis, even if they were built before all of these changes. And yes, this does not apply to Cybercab because Cybercab does not need the exemption to begin with. Number 4, NHTSA will streamline the application process for that Part 555 exemption, which again does not apply to Tesla and the Cybercab. And number 5, NHTSA will be updating its technical guidance for AVs, focusing on things like emergency responder interactions, safety management systems, remote assistance, and post-crash behavior. So overall, great for the AV industry and specifically companies needing that exemption, but that is not something Tesla is reliant on right now. So this federal framework when it comes to the vehicle hardware still might not be finalized for another few years once this new testing program is done and they gathered all that data. Now, that doesn't mean nothing's going to happen for the next few years. They'll keep making incremental improvements. But again, Tesla is largely in the clear of that entire process. The primary benefit for Tesla now is that NHTSA has a lower likelihood of challenging Tesla's self-certification down the line. And then completely separately, when it comes to the operation of these robotaxis state by state, we are still waiting for news about some federal framework for that, which at this point feels like it's quite far off. So to be clear, this is not news about a new federal framework when it comes to Tesla actually deploying robotaxis where they would not have to go state by state and follow each state law. We are still waiting on news for any sort of federal framework for that. This news only covers the hardware for the vehicles. Scott Stevenson posted a non-sponsored detailed review of Factor earlier this year, and I have to say he read my mind.
That smells really good.
It is good.
What is that?
Factor.
No, I know, but like, which one?
Potato, bacon, and egg breakfast skillet. Ow. Oh. Bowl is hot.
It's first principles optimization. It frees up mental RAM. It eliminates decision fatigue. It could improve your energy, depending of course on your baseline, and it is much cheaper than door dashing all the time. And Factor, the sponsor of this video, delivers meals that are fresh and never frozen, made with real ingredients, balanced macros, and at least 2 vegetables per meal.
My wife has started a business, and unfortunately that means she is not cooking as much, and I'll be honest, I don't love to cook, so that's where Factor comes in. And it's actually early in the day, but as you can see, maybe here, Factor also has breakfast. So this is a potato, bacon, and egg breakfast skillet, and I love how it tells you right on here, 21 grams of protein, 33 grams of carbs, 520 calories. I can tell you right now, it smells really good. So here we go, I'm kind of excited. This is my first taste test of the potato, bacon, and egg breakfast skillet. Let's see. Yep. I would say probably like 8.3 out of 10. Yeah, it's really good, honestly. I'll reserve anything 9 and above for like, you know, world-class type stuff. I'd say on a week like this, I'll probably have 2 or 3 Factor meals. Ashley will probably be the same. Here's a peek in the fridge. Here we got our stock. I think we got, yeah, 6 of them in there. So it's not like I'm constantly having this, but again, if food's not cooked or I'm in a rush, you know, it's just super nice to have available.
They have newly launched salads and globally inspired dishes like chicken coquinisto quinoa and over 70 add-ons like green juices and peanut butter energy bites, which is perfect for life on the go. And just be careful because if you have a sweet tooth, Factor has you covered there as well. 92% of people say Factor makes their life less stressful. So if you want to check it out for yourself, you can head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code Electrified FB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box, plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code Electrified FB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. Electrified FB50 at factor75.com. This offer is only valid for new Factor customers with the code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Enjoy. But listen, guys, the truth is right now, Tesla is not limited by regulations when it comes to robotaxi scaling. Because as Abhimanyu did clarify after I mentioned something this week, the daily active fleet for Tesla's robotaxis in Austin was around 30. So as I said, we'll see fleet numbers and counters that have the number up over 80, but that does not tell us the daily active number. And so my point is Tesla could scale to thousands of robotaxis in Texas right now if they wanted to with no regulatory hurdles. So right now, regulations are not the limiting factor. Another quick PSA, Roya shared a video saying day 4 Tesla owner and FSD in a parking garage crashed into a pole. And there's the damage for confirmation. So around those concrete barriers, shopping cart returns, chains, just be vigilant. And some actual limiting factors for robotaxi scale right now. Ariane shared he tried to take a robotaxi ride at about 8:30 p.m. the other night, and he was in the car about to start the ride, but support told him to exit the vehicle and cancel the ride, despite him already being in the car. And this was in Houston, so Tesla clearly needs to clean this up a bit and stop deploying these vehicles if they want to shut down the service. Ideally, Tesla would have canceled the ride before he got in the car. So weird things like this, Tesla is still working through. And separately, there was a video of a robotaxi getting stuck in Dallas, caught in a loop. And the video was shared of the vehicle trying to turn around at a dead end. After about 3 to 5 minutes being stuck in the loop, apparently support had to intervene. And you can see the message on the screen, poor connectivity, which we've covered in the past as an issue. So it should go without saying, but Tesla cannot scale to thousands of vehicles when they still have things like this happening. So obviously this is not safety critical, but it's definitely something that needs to get worked out before we see scale. Tesla Manufacturing shared a video saying 10 million vehicles produced globally. And don't forget, as it stands now, milestone number 1 for Elon's new compensation package is 20 million vehicles sold. So Tesla's first 10 million vehicles took almost 20 years, but the next 10 million will likely take somewhere between 3 to 5 years depending on how things go. And of course, when they hit that, that would only be one operational milestone that would need to be paired with a market cap milestone, but a topic for a future video. But milestones like this are a great time to take a second and look back on Tesla and really understand how far they have come. That Contour Global PPA we talked about earlier in the week that Tesla just signed, Elon replied to that saying this is part of Tesla's push for renewable energy supply to our supercharger network. And it seemed like some of you were saying I was redundant in that video, but I want to be clear, there were 2 separate PPAs. One was with this solar farm in Arizona, and there was a totally separate PPA signed in northern Texas. Also separately, we learned today that Concord New Energy has inked 3 power purchase agreements with Tesla for solar projects in the US. This for a total of 469 megawatts AC. When in full operation, the 3 projects will supply Tesla with about 1,200 gigawatt hours of electricity in the US every year. The first project is expected to commence power supply in the first half of 2027. And yes, these deals were announced back in 2025, but today we learned officially Tesla is indeed the buyer. And just so you know, these deals are exactly how Tesla can say on its impact reports our supercharger network has been matched with 100% renewable electricity for 5 years in a row. And again, given the scale of these deals, I would expect some of this to be matched with other electricity use beyond just supercharging in the years to come. Tesla said our first megapacks with Made in America LFP cells are on their way to customers. These domestic cells are made at our facility in Sparks, Nevada and integrated into megapacks in California. This is a significant milestone for domestic cell manufacturing and energy security. And remember, because Tesla is making these cells in the US, they will now qualify for that $35 per kilowatt hour tax credit. And doing the math for the LFP line in Nevada at around 7 gigawatt hours, that would be roughly $245 million every year in credits. But we have to remember we have higher manufacturing and production costs in the States relative to China. And as we just heard on the Q2 call, it sounds like Tesla's gross energy margins will be settling in between 20 and 25%. And I think that guidance would have had all of this already baked in. So of course, it's great for supply chain security and just American production in general. And as I always say, Tesla will never get the credit it deserves for everything it's doing for American technology. So it's an awesome and important milestone, but I would not be expecting energy margins to push back up toward 30%, barring any one-offs. I'm very eager to see how this one develops. Tesla's hiring for a megapod hardware lead. And this because Tesla's working on this new hardware for AI data centers. And the big line in this role, define go-to-market approach in product positioning in collaboration with sales and commercial teams. So I'm not expecting too much from this program this year, but I think this will be a very interesting one sometime in 2027. As Colton highlighted, some new Cybertrucks have carbon fiber underbody panels. Wes said it's a new material. Testing showed it to be more durable than the aluminum while being lower weight and cost. Also, slight efficiency improvement since we can better form the areas around the bolts to keep the underbody airflow cleaner than what stamped aluminum allows. And that was on a Cyberbeast. And I know there will be questions about retrofits. We don't have the answers for now. There have been a lot of complaints lately about the Cybertruck's PCS or PCS2, the power conversion system. Just think of the onboard charger and the DC to DC converter. Basically, this has been failing, and in a lot of cases, it has limited AC charging. And Tesla said we have made design changes to address this in newer vehicles. For 2026 existing owners, PCS warranty is now standard at 7 years and 70,000 miles. And for 2024 and 25, the PCS warranty is 8 years and 150,000 miles. Starting in the next few weeks, we will reimburse any charges for those who already required a PCS replacement and paid out of pocket. And immediately, they've rolled out a software update so you can keep supercharging even if a PCS failure occurs. And they've enabled free supercharging for trucks waiting for part availability. And today we also learned NHTSA is opening a preliminary investigation into roughly 1.2 million Teslas over reports of suspension failures that could cause a loss of vehicle steering control. NHTSA said the reported failures in this new investigation extend beyond the scope of those recalls and do not appear to be related to the production issue that prompted them, because don't forget there was a separate investigation into a similar issue years ago. There have been 156 complaints, and this is covering certain 2018 to 2020 Model 3s and 2021 to 2023 Model Ys. And shifting to SpaceX, Elon said to the right in this image is Mini Hard, which will have the same 220,000 GB300s with 800 gig NICs as Macro Harder, but in an improved, much denser configuration. And just know these 800 gig NICs are really just the network cards that allow all of these chips to communicate with one another. So already SpaceX AI has innovated from macro hard to mini hard, the latter being a totally redesigned factory layout so everything fits into a much smaller physical footprint. And the word is mini hard is roughly 25% of the floor space of macro harder, but with similar compute capacity. Say what you will about what SpaceX is or isn't going to do when it comes to orbital data centers, but right now they are not getting enough credit for how fast they are accelerating things terrestrially. So to remove 75% of the factory footprint means much smarter rack layouts, much improved cooling and power delivery and density, tighter spacing. And as we always say, all of these lessons learned will eventually trickle down to Tesla and Cortex. And here is exactly why this matters. So we have Colossus 1, Colossus 2, Macro Harder, and Mini Hard. And what have I been saying now for months? Do not sleep on the compute lease deals and how that can very quickly change SpaceX's revenue projections. We know the Anthropic deal, where they're leasing out primarily all of Colossus 1, is $15 billion per year in terms of a revenue run rate. And yes, all of these deals have short-term out clauses, but let's just assume they go on for some period of time. Google is renting out a portion of Colossus 2, that's $11 billion per year, and Reflection is renting out a portion of Colossus 2 at nearly $2 billion per year. So already under contract, we have roughly $28 billion per year of revenue for SpaceX just renting out a portion of its hardware. As far as we know, Colossus 1 is 100% leased out, and Colossus 2 is roughly 33% leased out. And both Macro Harder and Mini Hard are in the process of being built out with targeted completion dates sometime early 2027. So when these 4 sites alone are done, we should expect SpaceX AI to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.2 million GPUs. We'll call it 220,000 at Colossus 1, 550,000 at Colossus 2, 220,000 at Macro Harder, and another 220K at Mini Hard. So just using some ballpark figures and anchoring to these deals that have already been done. If hypothetically SpaceX AI wanted to lease all of its compute once these builds are done, that would be in the neighborhood of $100 billion every year. Now obviously they're not going to do this. They want some of that compute to train Grok and to use for its own internal use. But as I will keep saying, having this optionality cannot be overlooked. And further, the ROI on these lease deals can sometimes push 100%, meaning right now the economics are favoring the companies that can build out coherent compute the fastest. So before SpaceX does anything with orbital data centers, we need to be talking about what they're doing on Earth. For context, SpaceX did roughly $18 billion in revenue as a company, including revenue from XAI for 2025. So as you can see, one compute lease deal could double the revenue from 2025. And as even Jensen has said, it does not make sense how Elon and teams are doing things so fast, and they're bringing these compute clusters online faster than anybody else, and it's not really that close. So obviously there are plenty of assumptions baked into these numbers, but anytime somebody says, oh, SpaceX is so overvalued, just take a screenshot of this and share it with them. They'll likely have no idea what any of this is, so you can go ahead and explain it to them. And by the way, look, I'm not trying to make any arguments about SpaceX's valuation right now. I'm just saying the Earth part of the SpaceX story is very overlooked at the moment. And further, there's a report out there saying that SpaceX AI has demand side 8 gigawatts locked in. So this is definitely not a guarantee, but just so you understand what's happening here, 8 gigawatts could be in the neighborhood of 3 million GPUs. Those numbers I just showed on that slide, that was for 1.2 million GPUs. And Gavin Baker commented on this report saying 4 gigawatts this year and another 4 next year per this report, and the spot price for compute has gone up since SpaceX AI signed their Anthropic and Google deals. So crazy numbers, but also in that report they said regulation is the biggest uncertainty. Every turbine at Colossus 1 operates without a permit. The legal endgame is binary, a workaround, fines and retroactive permitting a relocation, or a shutdown. And SpaceX just said it will remove the unpermitted turbines powering XAI data centers near Memphis as it transitions to a permanent 1.2 gigawatt natural gas power plant. But the turbines will not be completely removed until July 2027. SpaceX said it's currently operating 69 gas turbines to power the Colossus data centers. And so hopefully this clarifies why Elon buying that APR Energy recently was such a big deal. In case you missed it, that's the company that specializes in temporary natural gas power. But get this, the word is APR Energy's turbines are not likely to be part of the new Colossus power plant. The new turbine fleet is likely intended for another unannounced project. So again, that's not official, but even if that's not true, it is so clear the speed run is fully on. So the near-term Memphis compute cluster for SpaceX could end up in the neighborhood of 1.2 million GPUs between Colossus 1 and 2 and Macro Harder and Mini Hard. But the word is the order book for SpaceX AI has that pushing up toward potentially 3 million GPUs sometime over the next 1 to 2 years. And those numbers I showed you on the screen were just for the 1.2 million GPUs. And this whole section is exactly why even somebody like Rob Maurer has said that talking about price to sales ratios for a company like SpaceX is ridiculous for this exact reason. SpaceX will host its first earnings call August 4th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'll have their own link below for their internal investor questions. Tesla stock closed the day at $311.21, up 0.76%, while SpaceX closed the day at $108.37, down 3.41%, this while the NDX was up 0.6%. Don't forget, check out Factor, link below for those interested. Just be careful because their meals are very good. You might be having it more often than you would otherwise want to. But seriously, the variety on the menu is incredible and we really do enjoy the meals. Hope you all have a safe and wonderful weekend, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.